Thank you. All right. This is the first episode of Subto Stories, Tales of Real Estate Investors. Here we have David LaMorte, and he is really a fabulous person. I've been getting to know him for the past, 4 weeks or so. We've been working on a few things here and there, and he's an interesting dude. He's got some music background, and I'll let him kind of take it away from here. So David, like we talked about, I wanna lay this out in a book, right? So if you ever start a book or a movie, they never start at the beginning, hardly ever, right? They always start at some weird pivotal point. You have no idea the context. You're just like, wow, this is crazy. Like,
Call
what's
that the
happening?
teaser, and especially in TV structure, they call that the teaser.
All right. So give me the teaser. Give everybody the teaser. Where are you going to drop us into in your story of your real estate life?
I like that. That's a great idea. So thank you, Bill. That's awesome. The teaser, I suppose would be, I don't know if, maybe a little bit cliche, but it's like I'm at that point where financial freedom is like I can taste it. It's on the cusp, and it's not a pipe dream in a way that it has been in the past couple of years, and where I clearly see that it's obtainable. So it's kind of like it's actually pretty perfect you say that, because I feel like this is the point of the journey where this year it's kind of already been in the process where everything's changing. Like I finally brought money into the business. I'm in that like cliche point right now where like, okay, like running out of cash, but like I have deals literally in the process that are coming through and closing and money coming in. And now I'm kind of reorganizing. I'm networking with people. I'm kind of rebuilding what I've known in the last 2-3 years, kind of dancing around this business, working on other teams, learning a lot. And now I'm finally in a place where there's some sort of momentum. So I suppose the teaser would be we're on track to be doing, consistent 1-2 closings a month by the next 4, 5, 6 months, versus one closing pretty much every other month.
Awesome. Okay, so you're in a cliche, right? That's where you're living right now. What does that feel like for you? Like, you've had your past couple years of like, living in the I'm going to get financial freedom, and now you feel that you were just a little bit closer than you've ever been. Can you talk like really specifically about like the ups and the downs, right? Because I really want to know like what does that even feel like on a day-to-day basis?
Honestly, it's very uncomfortable, and I'm maybe naturally a little bit more anxious, or I have a heightened acuity. So you're aware. I'm increasingly aware. So it's honestly challenging, and it requires more faith, more. I don't know if hope is the right word. Faith seems a little bit of a better word, because it has a little bit more certainty to it. And also, I guess, I'm about to be 35. So 35 is a little different. And we kind of were talking about this the other day, where it's like, I needed to get to the point where like I'm already behind to like start taking action the way I needed to, where it's like, and something, something happened to me, right? We got to watch the words we use. So I went through going through something this year. My dog passed away in January of 15 and a half years, Katana. Yeah, she was love of my life. And
wow.
I'm bringing that up because it's kind of crazy to even think about in the, like we said, cliche, or however you think movie. Maybe I think of movies because I have a bachelor's in film and I have a movie background. I'm an actor and all that. But it really is, it's crazy, like the manifestations of the story right now, where it's like, okay, my dog, who I love dearly, just passed. I put extra money into trying to keep her here as long as I can. So I spent like thousands of dollars that, and at the same time spending thousands of dollars in marketing. So every day is really uncomfortable. And then I have a deal, that I'm working on right now. That could be, just under, well, there's 3 that are already confirmed, right? That's like a 5K, a 15K, and a 3K. Everything's signed and it's just coming in. And then we have like another big one where it's closer to 30K. And especially in New York, things here are a little different because it's an attorney state. And I guess everywhere, nothing's done until it's literally done or in the bank. But even with New York, it's a little bit more of an extra process. Yeah, so it takes a little bit more. I warned you I might go off on a couple tangents, but yeah, so it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and it requires much more faith. And it's like everything's kind of piling, or the awareness is piling, where it's like, hey, my parents are getting younger. Of course, some with my dog maybe passing made me think about that. My sister is literally getting married this week. My brother got married last year. My brother's older, my sister's younger. And so I'm bringing that up because that's really the experience. And all these things are like coming together at once. And it forcing me to take a deep dive look at myself, which is leading to this call right here. And I was even nervous for, what we're going to talk about and where I'm at. And it's kind of all over. Oh no, people are going to see I'm kind of all over the place and crazy. And I might not even know how to dictate it. But to be honest, that's where I'm at, because you can't become that person without going through it, without maybe fumbling in podcasts for a year or so, right? Without maybe trying to tell a story and it doesn't go well, without trying to put money into marketing. And okay, it takes 4, 5, 6 months for that to even come through, right? So even some marketing recently, like cold calling that I've been doing for the last 3 months consistently, we're about to close on one. And technically that's pretty amazing because average is 5 months from call to actually getting money in the bank. So even when you have wins there, sometimes like it doesn't feel like it, because it's like, well, I got this money and I spent this on mentorships, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, maybe did too much there on mentorships because it's like I wasn't ready and I needed to put myself into an uncomfortable position. So it's really uncomfortable, and it just requires more and more faith every day and more action and more things like this, like 9 a.m. on a Monday with, someone like Bill, who you're not sure, and who it's amazing, like, to run into you, because I feel like it's even taken me a couple years to even find you, if that makes sense. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I had, because we've talked about my CRM. I've used this CRM and that CRM, and even ones that are go high level based. So it's like so much going on, and what you're ready for, what I'm ready for. It's like, okay, I wasn't ready to have 10, 20 grand a month, 30 grand a month, 60 grand a month. There's, it's funny because, to think like 10 years ago, wanting that amount of money, but there's no way it would have made sense. So I'll kind of put a button on it by saying it's all making sense, but it's super uncomfortable. It requires a lot of faith and living on a prayer a little bit.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I got goosebumps there in the middle. So that was awesome. And, sorry about the loss of your dog. I can only imagine what that was like. I had something similar when I was a lot younger. I was like 16 when our dog passed, and, we had her for 10 years, but that was like, I think it's different when you're that young, as opposed to when you're older. Like, I never had a dog really as an adult. So I think there's a lot different of a bond that is formed as an adult than there is with a kid. So I can't imagine.
Unhealthy. Why I do this?
Well, they're man's best friend for a reason, right?
For real. Yeah. And like you said, I got her when I was 19, and now I'm 30, about to be 35 and 34. So it's like, that is kind of a crazy, and that was like my baby, my daughter, like, it's like, so I appreciate that. And sorry for your loss as well. I lost dogs earlier too. Yeah, man. But
Yeah.
I'm taking it to use. I'm using it to take action and do things like this, and just put me like now. Even calls with sellers, I'm like, okay, like whatever.
It gives you a little bit more perspective, right? And you kind of touched on that with your brother that's older than you and your sister that's younger than you and your parents, like, and even your business. It really gives you perspective of like, oh, this stuff's really not important. Like this crappy call with the seller, like not important. Let me zoom out from my little microcosm of my business and look at my life and my family. Like, oh, that's the thing that when I am 99 and a half, that I'm going to be like, oh, I'm glad I spent time thinking about my family and not about these sellers, because those people are crazy and I don't care about them. I do because I want to help them, but like I can't give them my heart and my soul.
100%. Yeah, I think. Wow, that's perfect. You said that because I'm guilty of doing that with sellers, and then also with fellow entrepreneurs that maybe you're going for the friendship, but that's not quite what the relationship is. And if you're not fulfilling these other things in your life, you're going to try to find it somewhere else. Like if you don't maybe have that friend or that relationship that you need, now it's like, oh, like I'm paying 30 grand to like listen to a guru because I want to be friends with him because I think he's going to put me on. And like that's not how it works. I mean, and
Mhm.
it shouldn't work that way. And I mean, if it does, they would consider that either nepotism or a scam. It's like you can't do that. I mean, you could hope that people see you for you, but you know, you really can't rely on that. And I'm probably guilty of wanting to like, win by osmosis as opposed to really understanding like what work is required outside of that.
Yeah. Work, right? Like tell me a little bit about, so we've got the hook, right? Or what you call it? The
The
teaser.
teaser, yeah.
So we've got the teaser. Now let's go back into time and talk about your, so you were in like sub 2 in the beginning?
So not the super beginning, but when did I join? 2021. Um
Okay.
yeah, so I think there was 3,000 members when I joined.
That's the
Uh,
best timeline. How many people were in the group?
yeah, 3,000 people I think were in the group.
Awesome. So let's go back to like 6 months before you joined and tell me about like that 6 months leading up. Like give me the story, man. How'd you get there?
Yeah, man. So YouTube warrior, looking into real estate um for already, a year plus at that point. So say we're 6 months in. I'm working at my job at a place called American Racing Headers as the director of procurement.
Nice.
A job that I worked my way up. I was there for 8 years until last May. I kind of came in just cleaning pipe, and that was my job, just to clean and quality control, basically clean the pipe because it was all stainless steel pipe. So we're gonna have to like clean it down, clean the headers. Headers are the exhaust that come off of the engine block. For anybody who doesn't know, so we built headers and exhaust systems. I didn't, but so I kind of started working with accounting and so yeah, I was working director of procurement there. Worked with like 40-ish vendors per week. Responsible for purchasing about $4 or $5 million worth of material and other expenses. Not just material, but that's including, I mean, print. I was in charge of the printer lease, in charge of the landscaping, in charge of, all of that. So not just pure manufacturing. Um, and the company already announced that it was going to move to North Carolina, and we're about 6 months away from moving. Um, actually, they told us about a year and a half in. So 6 months before joining Sub Two, um, I had about a year still. So when I joined Sub Two, it was about that year mark where it's like, hey, I got a year to like learn some shit, so that when I'm out of this job, because I'm not moving to North Carolina, they don't want to pay me more than 80K or whatever they're paying, and it's hard to even get past the 6 figures with other stuff that I'm doing and even with bonuses. So it's like I'm only on that 6-figure cusp. And I want to be, passing that, especially for the amount of work I was putting in. And up to that point, that was my first single job. Until that, I was doing like 2-3 jobs at a time. So I was even grateful. It's like, wow, just one job, like Monday through Friday. Like I felt like I was spoiled. Even though the first couple years I worked still on the weekends. But so basically I was floating between a couple different things that I could do. A couple local guys and more subto was the other option, right? A bigger community, something like Pace, Arizona. I like the idea of, what they were talking about, and it seemed to encapsulate everything. So it's like subto, but yeah, that's like the cream of the crop because that's creative. You learn creative, but it almost requires all of this to be able to understand creative, which is like, just fix and flip and buy and hold and cash and all the lead generation and the whole world that goes into that, right? And honestly, probably just if I just joined Sub2, I could have did quite a bit, but after joining Sub2, I did join other things as well.
Oh, nice. What else did you join?
TTP.
Nice.
I did with Nathan Payne. I did a mentorship with him. I did with Marlon Johnson. I did a coaching who's also big in the Sub2 community. Mindset Marlon, shout out to my brother there, who's running through the country right now, literally. And he'll be arriving in New York and doing the Park to Pier. So he went from California, I believe, and now he's running all the way. So yeah, shout out to him. So I've made some great relationships. Shout out to Willie Yarza and Shai Slay and that team who I started with as well. Who they really started when there was like less than 200 members, I think. So they OGs, and I learned a lot with them. So, but yeah, I was kind of floating at that time with somebody local, and I called him, and this is kind of what led me to. It was like ended up being between him and Sub2, and this is a local guy, Long Island, New York, very specific. So I was like, I want to do that, and I called him, and because I saw a coaching program, I called him, wanted to do coaching. He's like, okay, like, what can I help you with? It's like, I'm interested in the coaching program. It's like, okay, like, but it's going to require, money and a lot of time. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, and you're going to have to spend money on marketing as well. I'm like, sure, yeah, cool. Like I had money saved, kind of been planning for this, about to do 8K with, Pace at the time. So I was like, okay, like if I'm going to spend 8K, what do you mean? Like it's $3,000 for your program. I have another $4,000. Like, I don't know what the thing is. Like, yeah, it's going to take months. And I'm kind of sugarcoating it a little bit, but it wasn't super encouraging. And that's kind of how the conversation went. So I was like, maybe he's not at the point where he wants to accept somebody or accept me, or maybe I'm rubbing him the wrong way, or it's just not a connect. And at the same time, I also met with somebody about 2 months after getting into Sub2, locally as well, big flipper out here, wholesaler. And he kind of also discouraged me by saying like, hey, like, I don't think you could go on appointments with like, the way you look and you get a shave
dude.
Ethnically, he's like, I don't know. He's like, what are you, and
What?
I'm mixed. So I'm Jewish, Puerto Rican, and Italian. And, I always joke kind of like I'm never Jewish enough for the Jewish people, or like, because, there's quite a bit of that around here. Not to get in too much trouble by saying any of that stuff. But I guess the worry was that I didn't have enough of, half of my look was enough, even though I look like freaking Jesus. The real type of Jew is this looking, not like whatever they try to pretend that it's supposed to be. They look half brown like me. So he could think that. But basically, he kind of discouraged that. And I was like, you know what? I like the vibe of these people. And at that time, it just made me double down on Pace. So that's how I ended up getting into it. It was only kind of resonated with the vibe in the crowd.
Awesome. Awesome. So a lot had to do with acceptance of just who you are. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
great. You want to learn real estate? I don't even see anything else except you want to learn. That's amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be great. Like, and especially because I'm coming from a pretty disciplined background. You know, I studied martial arts for a long time. It's like I did film. I'm like, okay, I'm just looking to do it, and maybe it's just, for a reason or whatever.
Everything happens for a reason. Even the things that we hate, they hurt us. Like the pain is what grows, helps us grow. So I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm also glad that it did, because now you have a path forward in a different place that you would have been before.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
All right, cool. So you joined a couple groups, you bounced around a little bit, you spent some money, and that was kind of 0 to 6 months, or 6 months to zero. Zero is when you joined Pace. What was the journey like when you joined Pace until, like, I don't know, like, just, I think I'm looking for, was it, did you struggle in the beginning?
Oh yeah.
How long was that struggle? Like, because when you watch everything on YouTube, right, it's always, it sounds and it feels that you join day 1 and day 10 you got a contract. All you gotta do is call realtors and like magic happens. And I don't fault anyone for that. I just think that it is the way YouTube plays out.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to expose, because that's the most important part of our journey, is from day 0 to like first contract, or like 10th contract, honestly. So lead me down that path if you would.
So yeah, 100%. So it took me about. I was cold calling for a team, when I first started, and that was pretty much weekends and nights, and it took about 4 months to get my first contract. That didn't close, but I'll say it took me 4 months of daily pretty much calling on their leads through Empodio to finally get something. It was upstate New York, and it was for 40 grand. He wanted 50 or 60. We got him to 40, and we were going to wholesale it for 50. We ended up not being able to do that, but that was my first technical contract. And then, yeah, so that didn't end up going. And then there was 3 more that I locked up within the next basically 2 months of that, and one of those closed.
Cool. So what was that, like 5 months time frame?
About, yeah, so maybe 6 to say, like, to get paid, like 6 to get paid for the first one.
Got it. So you joined a team, like that was a sub 2 team?
Within sub 2, yes.
Okay. And you were cold calling random numbers pulled off of batch leads or somewhere like that, right?
So it was technically, I believe, like older recycled PPC leads from other people at the time, which, it wasn't as big. Like, PPC wasn't as big, so people were answering. If you did recycle PPC right now, you probably would kind of get screwed. But at the time, we were still getting calls. Yeah. So that's pretty much what we were calling on, from what I understand.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they had like a 30% or whatever their workout with the people who were supplying the leads, and whatever closed, they were splitting a percentage.
Cool. So you jumped in with a team and you started cold calling old pay-per-click leads. Had you ever done that before?
No, the only experience I pretty much had is just, I felt, not cold calling at all, not real estate, not cold calling, just besides, daily dial stuff and listening, and like a week straight of listening to seller calls in the vault, and doing a couple things. And then just my experience with being director of procurement, I think that helped at least just be on the phone, because I basically had to cold call not cold called like this is, but I had to call vendors all the time because we were always looking for new products like that bottle. It's like, oh, we need bottles now. It's like we've never bought these bottles before. Now I got to call like 4 people, 4 manufacturers to find out what the bottles are, to find out what the pricing is, have them email me, and then find one. So that's not, but it's not fair to say like cold because I think that helped with an advantage, but yeah, not real estate related at all.
I think it is cold calling, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that's where most of my business has always been, is cold calling other businesses for the other businesses I was in, looking for people, vendors, like just like you were. And I mean, you're pulling a list off the internet and you're just calling them. They don't know you're calling, and you've got to like. The benefit is they're actually selling something, so they want to pick up the phone and talk to you. So that's
Yeah,
a little different, but it's still the process, right?
exactly.
Some people have never even done that. Okay, so you had a little experience cold calling businesses, not real estate folks. What was the first 3 months like for you in cold calling?
So honestly, it's funny to think about because at the time it's like challenging, but right now I've seen it's like way more challenging what I'm doing now. So at the time it seemed, pretty challenging, but I'm looking back I'm like it's funny, like it's like I could feel less stressed thinking about it because it's just like, oh, like still like you have your money coming in from your job, like you're about to do that flip that brought in 70K, and it's like, so I'm a little biased by thinking of that because I know that things were even more fine, and maybe that's a lesson now. Like, hey, just like then, what I'm feeling, it's gonna be fine now. Like that 100, 200 grand, just like that 70 grand was a big deal. That's in the near future, just like it is, was at the time. Um, so yeah, kind of a double-sided answer. Like at the time it was like stressful, but I was supported because I felt like I was doing a good job because I was taking simple action on that task. So honestly, the 3 months were not super hard. I think it got harder, honestly, because when things weren't going well, I was maybe still like, there's so much to learn. I could do this. So yeah, at the time, challenging, but really maybe wasn't that bad.
It's always fun to look back on challenges and be like, oh, I love that. Give me
Yeah.
more, right? Because it's always easier than the present challenge.
Yeah. And it was weird. I'll say it was weird being in my apartment and making calls, and like my roommate at the time, like come like because it was just like my bedroom and then the living room, which we shared. So I'd like make calls in the living room. It's like, oh, what are you doing, you sleazy salesman kind of thing. It's like, this is what I'm doing now, bro. I know we make music and I'm a filmmaker and but I'm doing this. So that was an interesting experience. Probably that was probably one of the hardest parts. Just like making calls and like other people that aren't in real estate, or like, that's going to be a different experience than what you think, maybe.
Can we dig into that a little bit?
Sure.
Because I think I think everyone has experienced, and maybe I'm wrong, right? But I think everybody's experienced some sort of that. Whether it's your roommate being like, what are you doing, you weirdo? Or maybe it's a significant other, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's just themselves, right? Because a lot of this stuff just comes from within,
100%.
and we project it onto the people around us because we're insecure about it.
Oh, yeah.
So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. It's like a double-edged sword, right? Because it's so challenging, right? And maybe it doesn't need to be, where it's like, the Gary V meme, regardless of how you feel about him, where it's like, your life is decided based on what other people think about you that you don't even like. And not that you don't like your friends or you like your family, but you might not want their lifestyle, you might not want their job, and it's interesting so you have to tap into that more. And if you're a naturally more empathetic person like myself, that can be challenging because you think you're being a bad person or being wrong. But it's also like the double-edged sword of why someone like Pace is so successful, or Bren, or it's it's all belief. It's like they just believe that this is the right way. And if you're if you're not if you think I'm dumb, then you're freaking dumb. And that's a hard thing maybe to do, but that maybe you need to tap into more in a way, and not that you have to be like, yeah, you're stupid, you know, my roommate who I love dearly, one of my best friends, you know, but you kind of need that. Um, and it's not like he doesn't want me to be that way, especially if he's a good friend, just like in something else where I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, I'm doing this because that's how it makes sense. I lay my guitar strings this way because it's, oh, okay. Where, you know, so you might get turned off by people like questioning you, but most of the time it's because they want to know and they already have it set in their mind that that's not how you're going to make money. And anybody who makes money is a scammer anyway. And you have to kind of, I guess, be comfortable, or I have to be comfortable with being thought of that way no matter what, because you can't, like, you can help a friend. I speak from experience. You can help a friend, you can help a family member, literally within your niche, within real estate, within this. And they still might hear you on a call and say, what are you doing? Were you scared? Like, they may still think you're not doing something right, you know, because their agent that you connected to them, their attorney that you connected to them, the freaking buyer of that property, they had to go to town hall and talk to this guy, and like you're connected to that now, even when you refer somebody. So like you think it's gonna get better, like, well, once I'm, you know, have the money and I'm rich and I'm referring people and I have houses, my friends could even buy my houses, or I could refer this agent. It's like, oh, it's like a slippery slope. You want to be maybe careful about stuff like that, or don't be careful and then just be aware that it's just like any other leads, right? Like your friends are maybe leads in a way where it's like, you know, some are going to fall off or some are not going to care. And some might still be your friend. And maybe your significant other is going to doubt you, but they may need to doubt you in a way, because I mean, a lot of times that might be part of it. You're going through it, and they need to see that you're strong enough to come out on the other side, and their biology is going to force them to come at you in a certain way, or be nasty, or doubt you, or question you. So I guess it's all just, you know, maybe acceptance of what actually is. And hey, this is the way it is. If you want to make money, like, people are gonna get freaking upset with you in ways that you think you can control. You can do things with integrity, they're still gonna get upset with you. I mean, and there's so much money on the table when you're trying to. There's like integrity, and then there's a level of integrity that's just worry, where you're just leaving money on the table all day. Where it's like, well, if they think this and I say this, then they might be worried, and then this, and you'll stop yourself. Like, it's already probably, you know, happening with me now, or with people who may be listening. All these blocks, and you have to outframe those people who have that doubt, and you have to even be logical about, like, okay, well, they're doing this, and this is yielding that result. I want to do this, and you kind of just have to be okay with it, and the temporary failure, because it's only failure if you stop. So just don't stop, and you'll never fail. Easier said than done.
Yes, it is. It is. All right. Well, I appreciate that. So your roommate, right? And maybe anybody else that was with you in the beginning, they saw you doing something that they didn't understand, and they would question you maybe in ways that were offensive, maybe not the right way to say it, but they caused some anxiety and, you know, some recoil from you. As I say this, like, I'm living it too. I'm thinking of parts of my life, and this is just a really hard part of anything that you're doing that is new, because we as people, if we're trying something new, we do not know the steps, and we don't know the journey, right? We don't know the lessons. We don't know the failures we're going to encounter when we're learning something new. So when we have these outside sources or people, usually they're people, asking us questions, I think a lot of the time it's not because they don't like what we're doing. It may come off that way, but usually it's just they don't understand it.
Sure.
And then we don't really understand it either as the person directly going through the journey. So it's hard for us to answer their questions because they could be really good questions. We're just like, I don't know. I've never been there. I just have this faith of what's at the end. And I know that if I keep failing over and over and not stopping, that there's a path there because I've seen it happen. I literally know 25 people that have gone the same way and they guide me along the way, but they can't share the exact path because it's not my path, right? So that's kind of what I took away from what you had said. So I really appreciate the way you articulated that.
I'm glad that it made sense in that rant.
Okay, so to sum it up for that part, and I want to kind of close here in the next like 20 minutes or so.
Sure.
To sum up your subto journey in the beginning, because when I first joined subto, right, I put out a video of like day 1 and 6 months and 9 months, and I get people calling me all the time about, oh, what's it like? Should I join? And I really want to expose, and that's like the whole purpose of subto stories, Tales of the Investor, is I want to expose that like that beginning journey and really share not just mine, but everybody's beginning, because that's the hardest part, man. If you don't have support and you don't understand the beginning, like you'll probably stop or you just won't begin. And I think that's the biggest tragedy, is not starting. So summarize for the person that is trying to take that leap, why they should and what it's going to be like tell them the truth. Like it's all of the hard things and the mental part of like you're going to encounter this and this. It's going to suck, you're going to hate it, but like in your words, give me your representation of 0 to a year.
Yeah. So when a mentor says something like, or a coaching program, to join now so that you could start, I believe there is a truth to that. Even though you're not going to call right away, maybe, and get your first contract, it's been done before, but there's a reason why they're saying that over and over, because they know, they make millions of dollars off of it, and they're still telling you it's not about the education, it's about the taking action. And you're only going to 10x your results by taking action and then having education and community backing you. So that's really what it's about. You shouldn't, it's like to join or not to join, right? The only reason you shouldn't join is really because you're not ready. But even if you're not ready, you should probably join anyway, because you're not going to get ready without doing something uncomfortable. And you may need to even work up to that. You may need to make 3 calls in a week, and watch how difficult that is. You might procrastinate for a month and then think about why you joined subto, because that's really what it is. So when you join, part of it, you're making that investment into yourself, and that where you're kind of burning the ships where, hey, I better take action, not just because of the money you invested, which is a decent sum for average people, but also because the answer isn't taking the action. And it's like, if there's one thing to take away, that's that. Like that could be just on repeat, this whole podcast that we did today, where it's just like the answer is in the action, and it's over and over again. And even when you doubt it, it's either because you just have to take more action, and because you're not realistic about that taking that action, which correlates into something earned or income earned or relationship earned. There's maybe more of a lag than you want to be. It's maybe harder than you think. It may be 3, 5, 6 months to a year. The hard part is, and even looking back, like I could have probably technically done everything in a year. I could have technically done. People done it. I mean, someone like Sam Singh dives into it and he's killing it. You know, he makes over 100 grand like just by diving in and having his process dialed in. I don't think I was there. I don't think I was in that or someone like who I love dearly, like a Kevin Cho, who's a young guy and he's just on fire. That's why I private lend with him because I want to connect and learn from him. But it's like, hey, I'm not a 22-year-old on fire with pace doing this. Like, you got to be like, who are you? Where are you at? And what can you do? And what can you contribute right now? And the only reason those guys are there, like Marlon, like Kevin, like Sam, the guys who are killing it, like Munif, you know, even the old school dudes killing it. They have been taking action, and they even came from other mentorship sometimes where they were taking action and they had to do more. So I'll sum it up by saying, like, the answer is in taking action.
Got it. So, all right, I'm gonna give you my summary of that. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So you spend the money because that is the fuse that burns the bridge to your old life, right? Burns that bridge. And now you're fully committed to this new endeavor. And that your only goal is to take action and be committed and let that be your focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm almost trying to avoid saying something that I don't know if it's too like strong or harsh, but it's like,
Say it.
I mean, if you're the type of person who was going to do it, you wouldn't be considering it or taking action. You're not that guy then. Sorry. Like, I wasn't that guy. Like, you know, and even whoever you think of that guy is, he wasn't there. Like, you might think of someone like Pace or Grant Cardone. Pace was flipping what, thousands of houses, like, and then he had to get to that position where he could just talk and be that way with sellers. There's a journey behind a lot of this, you know. Sometimes a decade of experience coming behind it. And some people are maybe just ready, literally, in their journey. They don't have. There's so many things that the entrepreneurial journey is going to force you to look at, your family life, because it's like your priorities, right? What do you need? Who holds the frame in your world? Is it your mom, which probably a lot of times it is? You know, is it your dad? Who are you thinking of as? Do you want to be Pace? Why? Do you want to be, you know, William Welch? Some of us do. Why not? So it's like you got to resonate with certain things. And hey, man, I think people on the fence, you know, there's a reason why you're on the fence, and you might be able to use that to your advantage. Like, hey, I'm the type of person that's on the fence. Do I want to be a person that's on the fence?
That's it. I think that's the biggest thing. Do you want to live on the fence or do you want to jump to the other side?
There's no other. Yeah. I'm gonna dip my toe. I know. Me too.
Amazing. All right, cool. So we're gonna sum this up, right? What's your future look like? You know, you kind of got this in the teaser, but give us like your future life.
Yeah, future life is smoother processes, flows, working myself out of the business, the lead generation business. I'm mainly focused here in Long Island, New York, locally, but I would like to open that up ultimately to other areas that are a little bit more smoother, where I have some connections. I know Arizona is super populated, but there's some opportunities for me to start owning some rentals over there, midterm rentals or some sub-2 deals. So I'm probably going to dive more into that, a little bit more into private money lending. And honestly, the goal is to buy the time back, you know, so where it's not 60, 70, 80 hours plus a week, and trying to kind of get away from that, but through processes and through building a strong team.
Sweet. Awesome. Do you have any, what can I hold you accountable to? If we were to come back 6 months from now and you're like, today you say you're gonna do X, Y, and Z. What's that thing I can hold you accountable to?
The XYZ. So 6 months: April, May, June, July, August, September. You know, this is This is
Or
a
nine
tough one,
months.
but I'm gonna
Yeah.
say it because I want to move into a new apartment. And there's a few. I'm saying that because there's a few things required to be able to do that. So honestly, if I say that, like a few things got to fall into place the right way to make that happen. So
Okay.
that's really honestly my biggest goal is, and I wanted to do it sooner. I wanted to do it within 3 months, honestly. But
Cool.
yeah,
So that is like the goal you put on the shelf, right? I want like the KPIs. Like, what are your
okay,
KPIs that are going to
KPIs,
get
cool.
you there?
150 contacts per month, which means 150 people that say they want to sell, raising their hand, converting those 3 into contracts, 2 of them closing. That's the consistent KPIs that I'm looking to do in 6 months.
So 150 people say yes, they want to sell their house, and of that, 3 will convert, right?
Yes.
All right, we still need to go back further. How many
Okay.
people do you have to call to get 150 people to raise their hand?
So, yeah, it depends on which pulled list we're looking at. Yeah, we're talking thousands. So I should have had it right in front of me because I have my reverse tracker right in front of me.
Nice.
Um,
Because those other goals, they are called vanity metrics, because you can't really measure how you're going to get to your apartment, right? That's just like, that's something you're going to do once you reach these goals, right? But we really need to get down to what actions are you going to take every day? Like, what are the things? And you have to come all the way back, which is what David's doing right now, is he's looking like, how many people did we call to get to the 150 people that said, yes, I want to sell my house. So, because that's the day-to-day activity that him and his team are taking. And that's literally, if you don't do that, there is no new apartment for David.
right.
Like, there's just not. And as you're doing that, I'm kind of like trying to explain to the people listening, like why it's so important to not focus on like, oh, I want to make $10,000 a month. Like, everybody wants to make money a month, but like that, you have no way of actually getting there. You need actionable steps, and you always have to go back as far as you possibly can to the beginning. And if you think you've gotten to the beginning, think about your process. Like, okay, what did I do before that? What did I do before that? And once you get to a point, you really won't be able to go back any further. And that's really where you have to start tracking, is the beginning, calling people, or maybe it's the list. I don't know what it is for you. Like, that's a curious question I have. Is it
I think it's
people?
closer to 75,000 maybe leads for what the numbers I gave you.
Okay. So you have to
Maybe
call
80.
75 to 80,000 people to get 150 to raise their hand and say yes. Of that, 3 will convert ish, 2 to 3. That's pretty crazy numbers.
See, and because I'm looking back into my own KPIs of the dials for the last 3 months. That's part of, and I see the 80 contacts, and I'm basing off of those leads too, right? Because that's about 30,000, numbers, 30,000, and then 80 of those looking like appointments. So I don't know if I did those numbers right, but I can dive a little bit outside of this too.
It's okay. Yeah, it's close enough, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm glad you bring this up.
You had 30,000 people that you dialed. Of that, 80 converted, but you basically want to double that. So now you're going to have to find a list of 75 to 80,000, so you can double the amount of people that raise their hand, and essentially double maybe your contracts are at 1 right now and you want to get 3. So you really have to double and triple down. So, I don't know, but maybe your KPIs are going to come back to how many people you dial a day, because that's like super trackable. And
Yeah.
that's a day-to-day operation that's going to affect you in the long run, because if you're not hitting $100 a day or whatever it is, you'll
That's what
never
we're
get,
trying to do. Yeah, 100.
yeah, you'll
We're a
never get
little
to
under it
30,000.
currently, but I'm trying to optimize the dialer to get there because we're
Nice.
getting a lot of wrong numbers, to be honest.
So I wonder if your KPIs actually come back to the list.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe like the quality of the list, like how many lists do I have to pull to get to X amount of contracts? And I don't know, this may not be a good KPI, but like
Yeah.
if you're always pulling similar lists, because you probably want to keep calling the same type of people that have the same type of problem, whether they're old landlords or new landlords or whatever, at least you'll have a process in place to call the same type of list over and over again. I don't know. I think probably the daily number is good, but then I keep going back. It's like, well, if you don't have a good enough list and your list isn't always the same, then
Yeah.
your KPIs are going to keep changing, right?
Exactly. That's probably a big part of the challenge because of the different sources of lists and that we've been bringing in. So yeah, 100%.
That's tough, man. I really commend you for going down the list route and dialing people and having VAs do that. That's hard. It really is. And that's like, if we kind of go back to what you talked about, taking action, like having yourself or your team dial 30, 40, 80,000 numbers, like you have to do that. If you don't do it, you will not succeed. So there's people that are on the fence of like, hey, I want to cold call folks. Like, this is what you're going to have to do. You have to call. You can't sit on the fence one day and be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, guess what? If you do that, you stay on the fence, you're not going to hit your numbers. So you're not going to reach your goal. Plain and simple. That's all there is to it.
100%.
Sweet. So how can people get in contact with you, David? Is there an email, a phone number or something? Do you want me to put it in the YouTube description box, or do you want to remain anonymous?
Yeah, anonymous for the rest of my life. No, definitely. Yeah, people can reach me. If you see me on Facebook, especially through Subto, you can hit me up on Facebook at David LaMorte. But I'll also I'll send over my number out to you, 631-495-7586. That's my personal. So especially anybody in the community can reach out to me on that. And then clearpath, REI plus at gmail.com is my email.
Sweet. And I'll put those in the description box for the YouTube. So if anybody is in the Long Island area that it wants to pick David's brain and help him and his team, or has some leads for him, they can hit you up. How's that sound?
Please do.
Cool.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, man. I'm going to stop this recording.